Maria stood in the dim glow of her apartment, staring at the peeling paint on the walls as if the cracks might offer her an answer she hadn't yet found. The bulb above her hummed faintly, flickering every few seconds before steadying again, like it too was fighting exhaustion. The apartment was small, one room that served as a bedroom, living room, and kitchen, but it had been hers for 3 years. She had fought hard to keep it, scraping together rent month by month like someone trying to keep water cupped in their hands. But this month, the water was slipping through her fingers faster than she could catch it. A cold draft slipped through the warped window frame as she wrapped her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. Her eyes drifted to the calendar pinned crookedly on the wall. 3 days until rent. Not, almost enough, rent. Not, if she skipped groceries twice, rent. Just rent, an immovable, cold number waiting to swallow everything she had left. She walked toward the fridge, her slippers whispering across the thinning carpet. When she opened the door, a hollow chill spilled out. Half a bottle of water. A nearly empty jar of peanut butter stuck tight to the back corner. A single apple, bruised and soft. She pressed her lips together. She had been stretching ingredients for days, cutting meals in half, pretending she was too busy to eat just so the little she had would last longer. But there was no more stretching left to do. The thread had reached its limit and snapped. The memory of her daughter flickered in her mind, Erica's small hands, the way she said, "Mama, come soon," each time they talked. Maria promised she would bring her home as soon as she could. She promised she would fix things. But how could she bring a child into a life like this? Into a place where even the fridge felt like a mirror of her failures. She closed the door gently, as though slamming it might make everything worse. Maybe it would. She checked her purse for the 5th time that evening. Folded bills worn from use. Coins that clinked weakly, not enough to sound hopeful. She counted them again anyway. It wasn't enough for rent. It wasn't even enough for a proper grocery trip. Yet she had to buy something. Even hunger had its limits, and she had already pushed her body past what it was used to. She slipped into her shoes, the rubber soles thinning but holding on, just like she was. When she stepped outside, the night air wrapped around her. The streetlights flickered here too, this part of the city always seemed tired. Trash cans lined the sidewalk, some knocked over, and a stray dog padded down the street, nose to the ground. Maria stepped around it quietly, offering a soft apology even though the dog couldn't understand her words. She just didn't want to disturb anything else tonight. As she walked, she rehearsed the math in her mind like a ritual she already knew the ending to. If she bought rice, she could stretch it for a week. If she bought instant noodles, she could manage 3 or 4 days. Bread would be cheaper, but she needed something warm, something that felt like food, not survival. Maybe she could skip buying soap this week. Maybe she could wash with just water for a while. Maybe she could tell the landlord she'd pay half now and half later, even though he had already told her, no more late payments. The grocery store came into view, its fluorescent lights spilling onto the sidewalk, inviting and harsh at the same time. She pushed the cart-free entrance door. The carts cost a small coin she couldn't waste tonight. Inside, the smell of fresh produce and baked bread hit her, a painful reminder of what she wasn't buying. She walked slowly through the aisles, touching items she had no intention of purchasing. A bag of oranges, too expensive. Cereal, out of the question. Chicken, impossible. She paused in front of the discounted shelf, where dented cans and nearly expired items lived. She found a can of beans with a dent so deep the label wrinkled. She checked the price. Still too much. She put it back. She drifted toward the instant food section, her hand hovering over a pack of noodles. It was the cheapest option. She picked it up, then put it back to consider rice instead. But rice needed something, oil, spices, anything to make it more than bland mush. Noodles at least tasted like something. She grabbed 2 cups. 2 cups would last her until payday if she skipped dinner twice. When she reached the bread aisle, she lifted a loaf and weighed it in her hands. Bread was practical. Bread filled the stomach. Bread was cheap. But bread wasn't warm. Bread didn't comfort. And Maria craved warmth, even if it only came in the form of hot water poured over dehydrated noodles. She put the loaf back. Her feet led her eventually toward the checkout. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the noodles and rice she had finally decided on. She kept her head down, hoping no one would see how many times she checked the coins in her palm. She felt exposed, as though the harsh store lights revealed more about her life than she ever admitted to anyone. She stepped into line behind an older woman buying fresh vegetables and herbs. Maria admired the woman's full basket, imagining meals simmering on a stove, a scent filling a warm kitchen. When it was finally her turn, she placed her handful of items on the conveyor belt with the quiet care of someone who never took anything for granted. As she did, she sensed someone stepping into line behind her, a man, the faint smell of paint clinging to his clothes. She didn't look up, but she could feel his eyes on her. Not in a threatening way, more in the way someone stumbles upon a moment they weren't meant to witness. She felt her cheeks heat as she counted her coins again. Not enough. Still not enough. She swallowed, forcing a breath into her lungs. She tried to smile at the cashier, but her lips barely lifted. Her hands shook as she pushed the rice forward, silently dreading what she already knew: she couldn't afford it. She couldn't afford any of it. And for the first time in a long time, she deeply wished someone, anyone, would notice that she was breaking. Maria's pulse hammered in her ears as the cashier read the total. It wasn't a large amount, not by most standards, but to her it may as well have been a mountain, tall, steep, impossible. She felt the words hit her, sharp and cold, and her fingers tightened around the few coins she held. They didn't add up. They never did lately. A sickening wave rolled through her stomach, the kind that came from more than hunger. This was humiliation, fear, helplessness, all tying themselves into knots inside her. I think I'll just take the noodles, she whispered, her voice small and cracking. She pushed the rice aside with the tips of her fingers, as if she might burn herself if she touched it any longer. It was the last thing she wanted to let go of. Rice could stretch into days of meals. But she had no choice. This was survival at its bare minimum. Before the cashier could reach for the item, a calm voice interrupted. Add everything back. Maria froze. Her breath caught in her throat as she turned. The man behind her, the one she had sensed watching quietly, was stepping forward. His paint-stained jeans, casual jacket, tired eyes that weren't unkind, he looked ordinary. But what he had just said was anything but. The cashier paused, confused, glancing between them. Maria felt heat rush to her face. No, please, she blurted out, shaking her head. I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. Her words came out too quickly, too desperate. She wasn't fine, and she knew it. But letting a stranger pay for her groceries felt like exposing a weakness she had spent months trying to hide from the world. She had kept her struggles tucked under her ribs, hidden behind rehearsed smiles and borrowed strength. The idea of someone seeing through that fragile facade made her chest tighten. The man didn't withdraw. His expression remained calm, grounded. Everyone needs help sometimes, he said quietly. Let me do this. His voice wasn't commanding or pitying. It was gentle, sincere. It reminded her of a warm blanket placed over someone who didn't know they were shivering. Maria swallowed hard. She wanted to argue. She wanted to push the offer away so she wouldn't owe anyone anything, not gratitude, not vulnerability, not a story she wasn't ready to tell. But her body felt too tired to protest. Her stomach tightened again at the thought of walking home with only noodles. She imagined Erica asking what she ate today. She imagined saying, nothing, baby. Mama's not hungry. But she was hungry. In more ways than she could articulate. The cashier slowly began scanning the items again. Maria felt a sting of panic rise. Really, you don't have to, she murmured, weakly pressing the rice back toward the edge of the conveyor belt. I know I don't have to, he replied softly. I want to. Something in his tone disarmed her completely. There was no agenda, no discomfort, no impatience. Just quiet compassion. She felt her resistance slip through her fingers like sand. The stranger pulled out his debit card with practiced ease, as though he had done this sort of thing before, not to show off, not to make himself feel important, but because some part of him believed kindness was a responsibility, not a performance. Maria could no longer meet his eyes. Her vision blurred, and she blinked rapidly, trying to keep the tears from spilling. She hated crying in public. It made her feel exposed, raw, like someone had peeled the layers she spent so long building. But now the tears were coming whether she wanted them to or not. You don't even know me, she whispered, staring down at her trembling hands. I don't need to, he said. I just saw someone trying really hard, and hurting. That's enough. The world seemed to still around them for a moment, shoppers passing, the hum of refrigerators humming, soft music echoing through the aisles. But Maria heard none of it. His words hit a place inside her that had been cold for a long time, a place she didn't think anyone would ever bother reaching. The cashier handed her the small bags of groceries in a thin plastic card. This is for you, she said, gesturing toward the card. A gift card. Maria stared at it as though it didn't belong in her hands, as though it was too generous, too unreal. What? She breathed, startled. She looked up at the man. Buy what you need, he said. Not just what you can afford. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. Gratitude and disbelief collided inside her, leaving her suspended in a moment that felt both enormous and impossibly delicate. She managed, after a few attempts, to get words out. Thank you, she whispered. But then she shook her head slightly, feeling the word was too small. No, I mean, thank you. Truly. He nodded, offering a soft smile, gentle, almost shy, as though he didn't want her thanks to become a burden. Take care of yourself. She watched him gather his own items, just a bottle of water and a package of nails, and pay quickly before stepping aside. He didn't wait for more thanks. He didn't try to prolong the moment or make it about himself. He simply turned and walked toward the exit, blending back into the quiet anonymity of the late evening. Maria held her bags tightly, the gift card pressed between her fingers like a lifeline. As she stepped outside, the night air felt different, less harsh, less heavy. The streetlights glowed softer than before, and the raw ache in her chest loosened slightly. She walked slowly, as if letting the world settle into place again around her. Each step felt lighter than the last. Not because her problems were gone, they weren't. She still had rent to worry about. She still had bills piling up. But something had shifted. A crack of light had found its way through months of darkness. Her eyes burned again, but this time it wasn't from shame or exhaustion, it was relief. Pure, unshielded relief. As she neared her apartment building, she pressed a hand to her chest. The kindness of a stranger, unexpected, undeserved, and immeasurable, had become the thread holding her together in a moment when she felt she might unravel completely. And for the first time in a very long time, Maria believed that maybe tomorrow wouldn't be as cruel as today. Maybe there were still people in the world who saw others, truly saw them. Maybe she didn't have to carry everything alone. That simple act, that quiet moment in a grocery store, had reminded her of something she had nearly forgotten. Sometimes, the smallest kindness arrives precisely when a heart is breaking, and becomes exactly what keeps it from shattering.